Not sure exactly what Booker Jones would think of all this fuss being made about him, but I think I know what he'd say. I'm fortunate enough, blessed enough, to have been involved in these induction proceedings since the very first one in 1998. And every time I look at the people who reside in this Hall of Fame, my mind is flooded with images. I see Leo Cleary blasting around a tiny bull ring, winning the feature. I see Ronnie Bouchard gliding around a big half-miler, winning the feature. I see Marvin Rifkin rolling an M&H tire across a pit area. I see Freddie Rosner, wrench in hand, making a fast car even faster. I see Steady Eddie Flemke sitting on a tire, sipping a coffee, pondering the race. Already when I look at the near class of 2003, I have a pretty good sense of the images that these names will bring back. I know I'll see Bob Pulverary winning a ton of races at a wonderful place called Riverside Park. I'll see the amazing foresight that must have guided John Honig when he built the track I've come to love, the Thompson Speedway. I'll see my old buddy Bobby Judkins in Victory Lane from Connecticut to Florida. And I'll see the open smile and the outstretched hand of Booker Jones. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I don't think Booker ever met a stranger. He drove modified cars all over the Northeast forever. Yet when he passed away last July, it wasn't the racing I thought of first. It was that open smile and that outstretched hand. He was everybody's buddy. He was also a pioneer, of course. Booker was years ahead of his time simply by being himself, a man of color in a largely white sport. Today, with sanctioning bodies and sponsors encouraging diversity, you could almost say that it pays to be different. Well, it sure didn't pay when Booker broke in. Stock car racing was a hard game, it was played by hard men, and a lot of those men had hard heads. It'd be nice to believe that Booker raced all those years without ever feeling the sting of prejudice, but that seems impossible. Yet Booker always insisted to me and everybody else that if any such prejudice ever existed, he never felt it. I don't doubt that, because Booker never wanted to feel it. All he ever wanted was to fit in, to be part of the scene. If people chose to look at him differently, that was their problem. He raced at Riverside Park, he raced at Stafford, he raced at Thompson, he raced at the Eastern States Fairgrounds, he raced everywhere. Booker knew everybody, and everybody knew Booker. Booker liked everybody, and everybody liked Booker. And why not? Booker had such a big racing heart that he often lent his cars to drivers who ran into trouble with their own equipment. Pete Hamilton and Bud Stevens, both of whom are near Hall of Famers, each took a turn as a substitute driver in the Jones 27. It was Booker to the rescue. Another Hall of Famer, Freddie DeCero, knew what it was like to be rescued by Booker. Writer Phil Smith, who frequently traveled with Freddie, remembers a trip to Long Island's Islip Speedway for an all-star race. Phil wrote, DeCero ended up in a confrontation with a local driver 3 times his size. As the giant lunged for DeCero, Jones stepped in, and in no uncertain terms he told the big guy, if you want him, you gotta go through me first. Needless to say, the guy heeded Jones's warning and he walked away. Truth be told, there are very few men in this Hall of Fame whose careers did not intersect with Booker's. He raced for promoters like Harvey Tattersall and Jack Rue. He raced against drivers like Buddy Krebs and Reedy Charland in the 50s, Bill Slater and Gene Bergen in the 60s, Billy Greco and Ray Miller in the 70s. Long after Booker hung up his helmet, his tow truck remained a familiar sight at racetracks around New England, and one thing hadn't changed. Booker still liked everybody, and everybody still liked Booker. There were Friday nights at Stafford when there were more VIPs on the back of that blue wrecker watching the modified feature than there were in the VIP booth. And before each race, no matter what track you were at, you'd see Booker making his way up and down the starting grid, shaking hands with this driver and that driver, wishing them the best. He did this so often that many drivers, including another Hall of Famer, Richie Evans, came to see this as a ritual. Billy Nazowitz, Richie's crew chief for years, tells a great story about putting on his radio gear one night just before the feature at Riverside and suddenly hearing his driver's voice through the headset. "Where's Booker?" Evans demanded. See, Richie had won 3 or 4 features in a row at Riverside after getting a good luck handshake from his friend, and he was anxious to keep the streak alive. So Nazowitz looked around and he saw Booker's wrecker parked in the pits. "You better get out there," Billy said to Booker, who hustled his truck out to the front stretch, extended his hand through the driver's window, and sent Richie on his way. Richie won another feature that night. Booker Jones was a simple man, so it makes sense that the best tribute I ever heard anybody pay him was a simple one. It came from a guy who knew him for better than 25 years, modified car owner Ralph Sullivan. Ralph and I were on the phone one night recently, and he asked me what I was working on. I told him I was trying to figure out exactly the right things to say when it came time to induct Booker into this Hall of Fame. There was a pause on the line, and then Ralph hit it right on the head. He told me, just say he was everybody's friend. Today, the New England Auto Racing Hall of Fame opens its door to see the warm smile and the outstretched hand of Booker Jones, and it says this, "Come in, friend." Here to accept this honor on behalf of Booker Jones is his brother, Bob Jones.
Thank you very, very much, Alfini, New England Auto Racers Hall of Fame. It's absolutely a great honor to be here, a very powerful honor to be here, to accept this award for Booker. He was my mentor, brother, and friend. And if it wasn't for him, there's some things I wouldn't have accomplished in my life. But I'm not going to take up a lot of time because there's other family members who would like to say a word. But I do want to recognize Ray Anderson and Rick McNally and Bruce Bentley, his crew. Booker used to always talk about young sung heroes. And it was always the crew members that worked on the car, and also the immediate the family, the wives and the family members and the fiancés and the girlfriends that made the sacrifice, the absolute sacrifice in terms of supporting these racers in terms of their goals and objectives. And so they're the unsung heroes that sometimes we don't recognize. And so I do want to make mention of that. One quick story I'd like to make mention of is the last day or the day before when Booker was in the hospital. He died of cancer. The doctors came in, 3 of them, and they said, poked him around the stomach and kept poking him and said, "Geez, how do you feel, Booker?" And Booker said, "Great, great, great." And he was in terrible pain, but he would not acknowledge that to the family and others. And the doctor said, poked him again, 2 or 3 doctors, specialists were around. "How do you feel?" Poking him. And Booker says, "Good, good, I feel good, good." Doctor says, "Don't, be honest with me." He says, "No, you can't, you gotta be suffering." He had lost a lot of weight. And Booker challenged him. He looked him in the eye, I saw him, he says, "Well, you wouldn't want to go around with me, would you?" And that was Booker. And so, but he passed away the following morning, and I know he's looking down from heaven, and he's just, I know he's excited to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I want to thank the board and all the people that put this together, especially Al Feeney, who lives down the street from us in East Long Meadow. He was consistent right there every day, getting information and coming by the house. And Al, thank you so much. I'd like to introduce his wife, Shirley.
My name is Shirley Jones. I was married to Booker for 29 years, and in the 29 years we had a son we named Leonard T. Jones. And the only thing that I can say that I'm very proud to be here, and I wish it was him here instead of me. Thanks.
God holds Booker's future, and he'd be happy now to know that he's also being inducted in the Hall of Fame. He accepted Lord Jesus Christ in his life before he left here, because it's a tough world we live in. And sometimes we don't know, we live on our own, say, I can do it, and leave God out of it. But he came aware. I said, Booker, you know, you were very blessed to do a job that you love. He's always loved working on a car ever since I can remember. Old junk car in the garage, he almost died of carbon monoxide, and him and his buddies. I mean, he has had his life on the line so many times I can't even tell you. Maybe some of you know. And car racing, all of you that are involved in it, death-defying adventure. And I said, Booker, you know one thing? God has left you here this long, 73 years, for a purpose. He let you raise and you did what you wanted to do. You worked on cars, you did what you wanted. There's very few people in this world do what they want to do. They have to work a 9-to-5 job. And they said, but you had people to support you. You had a wife for almost 30 years. And he looked at me and says, yes. And God, I said, you know one thing, you got to accept God in your life and say, because all he wants you to do is say, I'm a sinner and forgive you for your sins. And it started a gradual process. And finally he did. And when he did that, he was able to give up the cigarettes and the alcohol. Because, you know one thing, but you see, the damage already been done with the cigarettes. But see, he was healed when he left here because God had his future in mind. And I want to thank all of you that you had him on your mind too. Because I can just see him smiling down here. And his son and his wife, they're all so pleased. All of us, my brothers, and all of us, and the whole family. We want to thank you for thinking, because I got some stories to tell too. But I'm not. Oh, some stories, and people have been calling me up, telling me how he rode in the car. But I'll tell you one, he put me in the car. He said, sis, get in this car, the race car. I said, you crazy? I'm not getting in that car. He says, get in the car. He says, it's not going to hurt you, just get in there. So I got in the race car. It was in the garage. And he said, put the helmet on, put whatever else he put on me. And he reached in and started the motor up. Oh my Lord, I said, this is it, I'm gone now. Because, you know, because the car was standing still, but honestly, it felt like I was already riding on a racetrack. I didn't know that. I said, well, how do you guys ever, if the car is standing still doing this to me, what in the world when you get on that track is it doing? So if anybody had to experience, except you young men out there, the race car drivers and work around the cars, some of you ladies better get inside a car while it's running still. So anyway, I don't want to be long-winded because we got some more young people back here that want to say a few words. I want to thank everybody. You don't know how appreciative we all are, because I know he's looking down from heaven and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you.
My name is Nat Jones. I'm Booker's brother, and my field is music. So as a very young man, I sort of got out of touch with Booker. But I think I have something to share with you about Booker. My mom decided when we were very young that both of us would become musicians. And Booker also took lessons, and I took lessons. And after the first year, the music teacher decided that Booker definitely was the one that was going to be a great musician. He wasn't sure about me because it was taking a little longer for me to get interested in it. But I was 12, Booker was 15. He did very well for 1 year, then he got his driver's license. And to make a long story short, when he got his driver's license, he became my greatest mentor. He would bring me all over the place, even before I was ready, and have me play for his friends. But when I hear you talk about his spirit, it just does me so much good because I know that spirit as a brother and as a musician, and I know how important he was to my start and how encouraging he was. So you all know that, you know him as a car racer, but I know that that was his personality. No matter what he did, he would have been Booker Jones. So, thank you.
Yeah, I'm Benjamin Jones. I'm the youngest brother of the four of us. We have 4 brothers and 3 sisters. The one thing that I can remember is, as a kid, he used to always take me over to Riverside Park, and I was very privileged to meet such race drivers as Giacomo, Renee Charlin, the Cigar Man, Muddy Bags, Mo Gursey, Gene Bergen, Eddie Flemke, Dick Dixon, these are some of the drivers that I came up with because I started going to the races in the 60s. But you always knew where Booker was going to be on the weekends. Friday it was Stafford, Saturday was Riverside, and Sunday was Thompson. And the one thing I can remember is if it was yesterday at Riverside is the announcer saying, and here comes Booker T. Washington Jones Jr. around the third turn. And it was just like it was yesterday, even though his middle name is just Booker T. The announcer put some emphasis into it. Booker T. Washington Jones Jr. And that really stuck with me. And the other thing I'd like to say is like I say, my brothers and sisters said earlier, we're very touched and honored to receive this plaque for Booker Jones. And unfortunately, he's not here to accept it himself. But I know he's saying, why are you making such a big fuss over me? Thank you.